explains, I said, right now in my mind, I know there has been a cartel and legislative, here at play. Now the judiciary has said, spend this money. The old notes, the new notes, side by side. Now, the executive, who is supposed to enforce it, is mute on it.
Can the Supreme Court order the executive? Are you saying the Supreme Court is more powerful than the executive?
I'm not saying powerful, but in my own understanding, I think they are almost at par.
So if they are at par, how can one tell the other what to do?
Because it is its duty to do that. There's a dispute between people based on this crisis, and they've gone to court, and the court has said, okay, till December 31st, both old notes and new notes remains legal tender. We don't even need the CBN governor to come out and say anything. The law or the order is meant to be just obeyed outrightly. But because of how things have been in the past, people are waiting for Mr. Godwin Emefiele to come out and say something. He's not saying anything. And it's to me, this anti-people policy. Because you've done something which you told us will help us, and now it's not hurting us.
Well, we read that 20 trillion has evaporated from Nigeria's economy. The economy has basically ground to a halt. I mean, there's almost zero trading activity going on now, and even people's ability to meet their daily requirements of clothing, shelter, movement, all that is severely truncated. So when you say the CBN governor is not speaking out, should the banks just go ahead and ignore him and meet their obligations to their customers? After all, this money in the banks belongs to the people.
Like what I said there are people in the banking sector, who decided to make money from this. I was talking to a friend of mine, and he told me, he needed cash to run his business. And so I said, okay, I'll introduce you to somebody. He got to the person's office and met hundreds of new notes lying on the floor. This person was supplying this money to POS merchants.
But the CBN as the regulator, can they police the sector? Or are you saying the CBN is complicit in the underhand making of money from this? Of
course. Who prints money? It's the CBN. So definitely, the CBN is the number one person or number one institution who is aiding and abetting this POS merchant. Okay, when I was coming out, I needed cash. I didn't have cash. Most of my transactions, has been transferred. And I told the lady, I need 5,000. She said, can't get up to 5,000. I'm giving you 2,000. I said, just give it to me. And I noticed that all of us that came there, nobody could get above 1,000, 2,000. So definitely it means the lady will be with up to like 100,000 cash. But just because she's giving out 2,000 for 600.
How much did you have to pay for that?
600.
600 to get 2,000. So we're having to buy our own money now.
In fact,
wow.
It's very, very, very painful.
Very, very painful. The thing, the major thing though is that it's gotten to a point now where the CBN needs to speak up, because despite the Supreme Court ruling, people are still hesitant because people are scared that suppose this money becomes obsolete in my hand. It's only the CBN really that can give value to the money at the end of the day. If the CBN refuses to collect it, the money becomes useless in people's hands. So traders are not collecting it, consumers are not collecting it from the banks. So CBN really, we encourage the CBN, say something, stand up, look Nigerian people in the eye today and say something so that our lives can start back up again. We've been comatose for too long. Thank you, CBN. Yesterday, next.
Anger as gunmen kill 35 in Katsina, Kaduna. No fewer than 18 people were feared killed on Saturday evening in Katsina State when terrorists clashed with local security guards. This is just as the death toll of Saturday night's attack in Kaduna State rose to 17 in an incident that pitted cow herders against local farmers. Dayo, we haven't heard of these types of attacks in quite a while. Are they back again?
Let me throw that question to you, Michael. I mean, it's been quiet for a while in terms of insecurity, these cow herders and farmer clashes and bandits. Or maybe we've just been distracted by politics in the last few weeks to where we've overlooked or ignored those stories. But it seems like things have calmed down a little bit in terms of this insecurity issue. Maybe it's that the army has stepped up with those Super Tucano jets. They've been able to penetrate Sambisa Forest and all these other places. But now, in the last week, there have been 3 or 4 incidents. Look at this one in Katsina and Kaduna. How do you see this? Are these attacks back again? And if they are, what do you think needs to be done that hasn't already been done?
Okay, like you said, for a while, we've not heard of these attacks.
Yes.
And when I was reading through the story, I found that there was a wedding where these terrorists came to attend the wedding of a fellow terrorist. And something happened, there was a clash. And it was that clash that escalated into what we're seeing now. It just goes to show that, like what you said, everything had calmed down. But we still have porous borders. I was reading an article where I looked at the picture of a border between Nigeria and Cameroon. It's just, how will I put it? There was no fence, nothing. You could just step into Cameroon, and how many step back into Nigeria. So these guys come in and go out freely. And because of just a small clash, that's what has happened. So I think the government needs to fight off this thing once and for all.
Police our borders.
Yes.
Okay, so you believe that most of this is foreign infiltration. You
Yes.
don't think it's homegrown, local people
It is.
doing this?
Where I was living, where I was staying before, I had a chat with the security man. He's from the north. And he told me that these guys are actually people they know. Because it's just like 2 border towns.
I see.
So they know them. And it's just like he told me, it's not like you don't see your younger brother for a while. And he comes back. You chat him and you know what's up. So these guys come into Nigeria and out of Nigeria easily. They are mercenaries. They are being paid. So the government needs to work on our borders. And especially in the northern part of Nigeria.
Well, it might sound like cold comfort, but the bottom line is that the army is the one that is responsible for territorial integrity. So if they are really coming from across the border, then the army is actually empowered to go and take the fight to them. Army is not supposed to fight internal insurgencies, really, or anything internal. It's supposed to defend our territorial integrity. So if you are correct that these people are coming from across the border, that gives the army the local standing to go ahead and take the battle to them, and we hope the army will do that in coming days. Okay, Yedne, our last story. We are fast running out of time. So tell us about this disaster that happened in Lagos a few days ago between a train and a bus.
Okay. 6 Lagos workers die. Others injured after train-bus collide. The Nigerian Railway Corporation, NRC, and the Lagos State Emergency Management Authority, LASEMA, have blamed the driver of the bus for the accident, and the federal government has ordered a probe. According to the government agencies, the bus driver was reckless and ignored safety warnings by railway staff.
Okay.
Families and Good Samaritans donate blood as 29 critically injured victims battle for survival. The Lagos State University Teaching Hospital has said there are still 43 victims of Thursday's train bus accident on admission in its facilities. LASUTH had on Thursday said it received 102 victims of the train bus crash for treatment. The Ministry of Health, in a statement on Sunday titled Updates on the Bus Train Accident in Lagos as at Sunday, 12 March 2023, explained that 53 victims had been discharged as of March 12. What's your take on this, Dio?
Well, 102 passengers seems like a lot of people to be on a bus, but my understanding is that a lot of people who would have taken public transport to work didn't have cash and opted to go in the free state transportation provided by the Lagos state government, and that's why there were that many people in the bus. So here we are again, seeing this Naira redesign policy creating havoc and extinguishing innocent Nigerian lives. So back to CBN governor again. Speak up today, Mr. Emefiele. Last word from you, Michael, on this crash between the bus and the train. From a transport perspective, how could it have been avoided?
Yes, last week Thursday was a Black Thursday for Lagos State, and it's very painful that these who are teachers end their lives all because of the mistake of one person. According to the news report, the train was coming and the bus was flagged down to stop, but he thought he could quickly pass through
Before the train came?
before the train, and maybe some mechanical issues happened, and unfortunately the bus could not go, and that's when the collision happened. 2 people died on the spot, and 4 died
Subsequently.
and go to the hospital. So I think the driver is just the one to take the blame. He has been apologizing to everybody, but so painful. It could have been avoided. And this is common with most of our drivers. We are still yet to, have a society that obeys traffic law. In Senegal, if you have the red light stopping you, even though there are no cars,
You still stop.
you still stop.
You don't dare go.
You don't go. You don't even go. But here in Nigeria, they just look, okay, there's no car coming, no car going, let me just go. And so it was very painful that his act led to people.
Led to loss of human life. And that's where we're going to have to leave it for today. We thank Michael Adebo, has been very articulate and incisive with his analysis of the various news stories today. So once again, I thank you for joining us. My name is Dayo Akintobi. We look forward to
Thank you for coming, sir.
Yes.
I was expecting the noise,
Noise.
the siren and everything.
Can't I have a break even for a few hours from this silence and so on?
Now I see why you want to come back here now.
Yes. You can see this place is more friendly, isn't it, than Abuja?
Wow. So how much do you miss it when you're not here?
Well, very much so. That's why when I come, I keep my eyes very wide open, as if it was the first time I'm coming. This fruits bearing trees are growing very fast. Yes.
So you're counting the days now?
I am counting the days, not even the months.
What amazes me is that if you know him now, to me is the same Buhari I knew, 1953. He's a good listener. He will accommodate you, listen to you, and he will never fight back.
If you are not hardworking, if you are not honest, if you are not dedicated to your duty, don't come near Mr. President Buhari. He has a very long face, but you have to catch up. He looks after the welfare of his staff, especially his close aides. He makes sure everything is well or is fine at home front, because he asks questions. That's how is everything going on? And whenever there's anything, he takes your problem as his own problem.
the ordinary people are his friends. And then Kaduna, you come and see them in his sitting room. They are not only in the sitting room, but they are on his dining table, eating with him.
There wasn't any day you go to Sultan Road and not see people queuing, and that he will not attend to you.
When he goes to his farm, the only thing you will know that he is not with them is because of his white dress and height. He mingles with them. When we're going to the mosque, we enter the normal place, or queue from where we find it. We don't overstay our queue. And normally, during Christmas or Salah, the father buys a dress for his children. And from 1996, when I started working with him, up to this year, he will buy me Salah dress. Every Salah. So along with his children. So I'll have my own children, my own Salah dress.
When my mom passed away, we were going to hold a commendation service for my mother in Lagos, and I just sent her some cards. I sent one to his house in Kaduna. Lo and behold, on the day an SUV just drove into the premises of the hall, and I went to welcome whoever was in it. When they opened the door and I saw him, I was shocked. I said, "You could make it?" He laughed, and he stayed with us throughout that service, a Christian service. A man they used to call a Muslim bigot. He stayed throughout that Christian service. It was one of the things that convinced me that the man was not who people were saying he was.
I first met him in 2007 because they were trying to meet pastors who could also, and not only pray along with them, but who could identify with him to remove the toga of Islamic fundamentalism, which he has been labeled with for too long a time. I saw him as a forthright person, an incorruptible leader, and one that was ready to bring about discipline to our society.
He's a very self-effacing person, also very witty and humorous when he's comfortable in the environment he is. He can be surprisingly shy when he's not comfortable. He's amongst people who is not accustomed to being around, and he can live in his own skin and say very little. But when he's comfortable, he can be a pot of good humor.
I got to know him from about 1976 when he was the Minister for Petroleum. And I was working in the presidency. You know, he has this expectation of people to take their responsibility seriously. He gives you an assignment, he expects you to carry it out.
Mr. President.
President Buhari, you walk into his office, see him reading, let's say, a memo. You not even notice you are there. He puts in his 100% on that memo until after he reaches the end of what he's reading. He does not even know somebody is there standing.
We first met January 1953. Buhari, as a child, was quiet, humble, and reserved.
There's one thing I also learned, that you lost your father very early. How was that growing up?
Yes, well, it was a difficult time. I didn't know my father, so I was an orphan, which means I didn't enjoy went into a boarding school for 9 years. 3 of the primary school and 6 secondary school. Yes, I miss my parents, but I was lucky. We were a generation of lucky people.
His father passed away when he was 4 years old. His father had 3 wives. Muhammad was the youngest of 23. He had sort of surrogate fathers throughout his career, including within the military and including within the school system.
He was brought up by his senior brother, who was a teacher. He is one of our teachers. So he had a good home training under the care of his senior brother.
President Buhari is my uncle. I'm his nephew. My name is Amandaura. His mother, Hajia Zulehat Musa, is my grandmother. Her first child was my father. Her last child was Muhammad Buhari. My father was his guardian, but it was tough for him, but tough for us also. Life was very tough in those days. You went to school in the morning, you came back and you go to the bush, collect firewood for the night reading. We had no lamps in those days. We used firewood to light, and we had slates, which we wrote chapters of the Quran and read. And so you have one chapter, you read it during the session, and then tomorrow morning you wash it, and another chapter or a piece thereof is written, and you learn it by heart.
So when I was away from home, I think I was constrained to behave myself because there was nobody to rescue me. So I was behaving myself. As I said, I became a class monitor. I became a junior prefect. I became senior prefect. I became a head boy.
You know, boys will be boys. You will transgress on occasions. You'll be late for school. Refuse to attend lessons sometime. Go out to play, and that will be severely punished. Whoever did that will be punished. And the teachers were, I wouldn't say harsh, but they were disciplined. They taught us discipline. If you transgress, they lash you.
There was discipline in schools then. There's corporal punishment. And I think to a certain extent, it molded the minds of the children and so on and so forth.
Our generation was very lucky. Our teachers were absolutely committed and dedicated. And they treated us like their own children. If you do well, you are praised. You are brought before the classroom, your work is shown and you are praised. If you don't perform, you are again brought before the classroom, stripped and flogged on the buttocks. And there is no way I can forget school, because what we call the teacher I see there, called Mala Abdul, is a very strict person. And he doesn't spare the rod. We call it Bulala. really. We don't like the rainy season approaching because we have to go to school farm. You wouldn't be late there, just like a classroom. And if you are late from 6 to 2, you land on your buttocks. And you have to remove your shorts so that you get the message proper. Among the teachers, I could only again remember our Arabic teacher. No matter how hot it is, he comes in with a turban. And every week we are given to recite part of the Quran. Every week. And the only thing we can do to avoid it is to report sick if we haven't recited the part given that week. So we report sick. But even if you report sick, then you are stopped from going to a breakfast break until you recite the bath you are given in the class.
I'm sure you didn't get too much Bilala because you are always like a leader in class.
You will be very surprised. I got a lot because I try to avoid going to the school farm. And if you miss it, you are not allowed to go on breakfast break. So you will have no break until the school is closed. But what I do between the first whistle and the last one, I go over the wall of the school, rush to home, and sometimes I'm eating up to the time I go into the classroom. And no one could forget those days. Trying to be clever by half.
How did a boy from Daura end up in Liverpool, straight out of secondary school?
I was picked from here, and then the whole of the north, again, I was the only person picked to go to UK, recommended to go to UK, Elder Dempster. Elder Dempster line. Were given some slots for children from each region, from the north, from the west, from the east then, and from Lagos. 4 of us were taken. And that's how I managed. You can see the system then. Here in Katsina province, we are the junior part. In Daura here, but I was picked, from the whole of the north to go to UK for holidays. That was my first visit to the UK. And what struck me when we arrived at Liverpool, we went to the center of the Liverpool. Some of the cities in London, then there was a central roundabout in the town. From there, you can go to other places. And when we went down about break time, I saw people coming out. Everybody well dressed up, just the way you are, but almost 3-piece, handsome, healthy. And then I reflected a street back here in Katsina on my school days. When I'm going to the mosque on Fridays, blind men, cripples, leopards, people in rags begging for what to eat. So I say, God, how can we understand? That impression is still there in me. You look at people coming out as if they made it up themselves. Very well dressed, handsome. Underdevelopment is terrible. That's the only thing I can say.
He was interested in science at the time. He was thinking of becoming a doctor. He was born in 1942, end of colonial era in Nigeria. They didn't really have a medical school yet at ABU. It turned out not to be a career path for him, although it was an interest. When he was finishing up secondary school, the Emir of Katsina, who was the neighboring Emir to Daura, was encouraging young men from the north with leadership potential to go into the officers' training.
The Emir of Katsina then, he sent Hassan It was no longer a profession for the poor. My height was a disadvantage to me. Then there were cadets only in government colleges. Zaria, Kepi in the north, I don't know how many in the south. The provincial secondary school, which was my school, they were not given army cadets. But the Emir of Katsina wanted to make a case to late Sardauna that he wanted a cadet school, a cadet in his secondary school in the state. So the Sardauna told the Prime Minister, and the Prime Minister told the Minister of Defense. And then Katsina had a cadet. And then a retired ex-World War II veteran from Katsina was made to be in charge of the training. Just because of my height or something, I was picked to be the sergeant. So from there, I was impressed by the military discipline and so on. So when I left, I just went straight to the army.
And he was very attracted with the idea of uniform, discipline, and extracurricular activities like night exercise and drills that attracted him very much. And he was eventually, plus he had a few friends like Sheikh Eradua, may God have mercy on him, and Jega, Emir of Gondu, and Magoro. They were his classmates, and they all started, so that the hard instinct also had an influence in his decision to join the army. And he has never regretted it since.
It must have been something for him. I mean, he went into the army to be a soldier. Then there was a political crisis, the coup and the counter-coup, then the Civil War.
This is where the value of fighting for country comes in, because at every point of his military training, he was taught, you know, you fight for your country, you die for your country, and you do it with honor. And so the idea of splitting the country it just sent shockwaves through these people. Even though they knew some of these counterpart officers on the other side, they never saw it as Buhari never saw it as an Igbo thing, as an ethnic thing. He always saw it as the rebels and the attempt to split the country.
His battalion, the 2nd Battalion Nigerian Army, he was number 2 in the battalion. They were the first to fire shots. A battle in which they were advancing, and the opponents, the rebels, shot at them, and the fellow on his right was killed, the fellow on his left was killed. But he was unscathed. It was dreadful, dreadful. I was so afraid reading the dispatches to see the casualties, and I always pored over the casualties to see if his name was involved.
The Biafran Civil War was one where you didn't know you were going to survive. They were hacking their way through the rainforest, which was very different than the dry savanna in the north. And his men had to be sure to take health precautions, change their socks, not get fungus in their feet and things. So he was always concerned with the welfare of his men. I think even his critics would say this, that this was a young officer who took his leadership seriously.
And if I tell you that I walked across Nigeria from Benue State virtually up to the sea when we were fighting the Civil War, the 30 months of the Civil War, I was always in the front within the small arms range for the 30 months. I was never relieved But when I was sent to India and the United States subsequently to do my training, people were saying, why always Buhari? But when I was being sentenced to the front, nobody asked, why didn't they bring me back to their headquarters where they have time to drink and dance? This is Nigeria.
There was a bloodless coup today in Nigeria, which is Black Africa's biggest and richest nation and the world's 8th largest oil producer. The overthrow of strongman Major General Yakubu Gowon.
Fellow Nigerians, events of the past few years have indicated that despite our great human and material resources,
So I heard you met the then Colin Buhari when he was governor of the Northeast.
Way back in the early 70s or mid 70s, I was a young student, aged about 18, 19, and he was then governor of the Northeast. He was military governor of the Northeast, and I was a young student activist.